This is Jeff Makinen at DRF Sports, handicapping the divisional round of the NFL playoffs between the sixth-seeded Minnesota Vikings and the top seed of the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. The game will take place on Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the first of 4 playoff games for this weekend. Speaking of playoffs, DRF Sports has you covered for the playoffs with all the latest matchups and betting lines, along with our rating systems, stats, winning betting angles, and analysis of public betting action. All this for $5. Log in at sports.drf.com today and get your subscription started. San Francisco currently a 7-point favorite in this divisional round matchup against the Vikings with an over-under of 44. The line opened at 6.5 and 45.5, so it has come down slightly on the total and a little bit of movement to San Francisco. Looking at our ratings, you can see that estimate number one of our game simulator pretty much calls this one right on the number. San Francisco projected to win by 7, with the over-under a little bit higher at 53. So they're expecting a little bit, the estimator expecting a little bit higher scoring game here. Estimate number 2 calls for San Francisco to win 25-20, somewhat near the number again. And the Statfox power line has the 49ers as 4-point favorites, giving 3-point of value edge to the Vikings. Overall, consensus line here would be roughly 5.5 in favor of San Francisco. So there is maybe a point and a half of value to the Vikings. Looking at these two teams statistically, the 49ers are really the second best team in terms of statistical profile, second only to the Ravens. The 49ers are outscoring their opponents by 11 points per game. They've been really tough to score on and really tough to move the football on. They've given up just 282 yards per game, 4.9 yards per play, 170 passing yards and 5.2 yards per pass. So excellent pass defense, specifically for the Niners here. The Vikings, not too bad themselves. They outscore their opponents by 6 points per game. However, they're not quite up to snuff when it comes to defense. Their 341 yards per game allowed is 60 yards per game worse than the 49ers. Taking a look at our betting angles, couple of note here. Mike Zimmer, as coach of the Vikings, off 2 consecutive wins against the spread. When he's on the road the next game, he is 14-3 against the spread. That does apply in this game. The Vikings are off 2 consecutive covers. They covered the spread in a Week 17 matchup against Chicago before playing New Orleans and covering that game down in New Orleans last weekend. Betting system here that does favor the 49ers. Bet against road teams, often upset win as an underdog, with a winning record playing another winning team in the second half of the year. In this case, the Vikings did pull the upset at New Orleans, and they're on the road against a winning team. So betting against that team would be 129-75 since 1983, plus 46.5 units. So that one does favor San Francisco. There is an interesting trend here that favors the under. Mike Zimmer, as coach of the Vikings, 48-28 under against NFC opponents. In this case, the average score of those games is just 21.7 and 19.3. So average total there, 42 points. So a little bit under the current total of 44.5. Taking a look at the betting action in this game, San Francisco drawing 54% of the wagers, 46 on Minnesota, so pretty evenly split there. 70% of the betting action is taking the over, 30% on the under. Despite that 70%, the total has come down 1.5. So there may be some sharp action here favoring the under in this game. San Francisco comes into this game with the bye week, which has traditionally been a relatively large advantage in the divisional round of the playoffs. Their last game was a close, hard-fought win over division rival Seattle, which gave them this home field advantage back on December 29th. As mentioned a couple times, the Vikings are coming in off their playoff win at New Orleans in overtime, 26-20. Head-to-head, these teams have not matched up often. last meeting was in 2018 where the Vikings won and covered in Minnesota 24-16. Of course, you must keep in mind that was a completely different team for San Francisco. It was the opening week of the Shanahan era and the Garoppolo era. One interesting potential stat here, on grass fields, the Vikings, who, as you're well aware, play their games in the TCF Bank Stadium, the dome. They're just 1-3 this year, both straight up and against the spread on grass fields. Looking at this game overall, our sports form handicappers in this game do like San Francisco to cover the 7. Two of our handicappers make this a best bet, and it is a consensus pick. This is Jeff Makinen at DRF Sports, Twitter handle @SportsDBExpert. Good luck this weekend in the NFL playoffs.